Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to this event. Thank you for giving us your time. So this is going to be a brief hour explaining what the Climate Ecological Emergency Bill is, why is it important, and why we need you guys to try and help us support it, particularly getting your MP supported. So just some kind of keeping. Make sure all your microphones are muted and feel free to ask any questions and put them into the chat. We have someone here collating them all, so we can ask them at the end of the session after all the speakers have made their part. And I hope you enjoy it. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Charles. Charles, could you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Hi, yeah, thanks for that. Really looking forward to our discussion over the next hour or so. My name's Charles Secret. I'm a member of the alliance that's formed around the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. I've been involved for the last 18 months, and I'm principally responsible for campaign strategy and campaigning.
Wonderful, thank you. And Katie?
Hi everyone, I'm Katie. I'm part of the UK Youth Climate Coalition Community Team, and over the last year or so we've been working on a website that allows you to look up your MP's climate voting record, and I'm going to be talking about that a bit more later in the session.
Thank you, Katie. And Jeana?
Hi everyone, I'm Jeana. My pronouns are she, her. I'm with the UKYCC Systems Change Working Group, but in my day job I work at Hope for the Future, and we basically train people up on how to engage their MPs on climate change. So I'll be talking about some ways to different approach to engaging your MP.
And EJ.
Hi, my name's EJ Fawcett. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a member of the UK Student Climate Network and one of the coordinating members of the Oxford Youth Strike Group for Climate.
Wonderful. So first I'd like to go to Charles. And Charles, could you explain to everyone what the CEE Bill is and why is it so important and vital that the people here can try and start engaging the MP to support it? And why is it so important? Why are we making a fuss about it here today?
Okay, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill is a potential act of Parliament. And what the campaign is about is to get this bill passed, a draft piece of legislation passed into law. And this draft law will ensure that the UK fulfills all its responsibilities throughout society, the economy and politics to address the twin crisis of climate breakdown and the destruction of our natural world. And one of the most important aspects of the bill is that it joins these two issues together. The Climate Change Convention, which was set up almost 30 years ago now, sets out common but differentiated responsibilities that all nations have to address the climate crisis. And developed nations, like the United Kingdom, are supposed to, whoops, there we go, of course my phone goes off, are supposed to be acting the fastest and the strongest to reduce climate emissions. But unfortunately, like most other developed nations, we're not. We also have responsibilities to help developing nations reorder their societies and their economies so they don't destroy nature, and all of us don't keep the carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions pumping into the atmosphere and causing the problems that are causing around climate breakdown. 2021 is a critical year because we have the Biodiversity Convention, a global summit where governments come together to protect nature, supposedly, happening in May. We have the G7 meeting of the major economies in the world coming together in June, of which the UK is the host. And then in November, we have the Climate Summit, COP26, the Conference of Parties 26, where the UK is a co-host. So 2021 is a critical year for making sure that our government, with the important roles that it's playing in each of these summit meetings, but also other governments, step up to the plate and start genuinely protecting nature, biodiversity, critical ecosystems and wildlife habitats, and also reduce our carbon and other greenhouse gas emissions to safe levels. Now, what is a safe level? Well, the safest level that we can achieve now is to reduce our emissions sufficiently so that we don't increase average atmospheric temperatures more than 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels. And we're already at 1.1 degrees centigrade, and heating is continuing. Now, the plans that the UK has put into place, while positive in some respects, are just not nearly sufficient to be able to do what we have to do to play our part in globally meeting that 1.5 degrees centigrade target. So the 1.5 degree target is a central part of the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. The bill sets out and expects government to produce a response strategy to tackle both the climate and nature crisis and meet that 1.5 degrees centigrade target. It also plugs holes in our existing legislation. The best piece of legislation that we have at the moment is the Climate Change Act that was passed in 2008. But unfortunately, that doesn't, although it sets responsibilities for the UK to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, it has loopholes, escape clauses. For example, aviation and shipping emissions aren't covered. Emissions right across supply chains and consumption from at home and abroad that is UK caused aren't covered. And so this bill plugs those gaps. It also sets a responsibility for government to robustly protect and restore critical natural ecosystems, not just to conserve them, but to take measures to replenish and regenerate them. Natural biomes, ecosystems like forests and grasslands, soils and species populations, all are covered. And another qualification in the bill, at the moment, our government's plans allow for unproven technologies. Negative emission technologies is the jargon word. And there is a large reliance in our current government plan to address the climate crisis on using these unproven and untested technologies to make up for a lot of what we have to do. And this is simply not good enough. So the bill says, no, that's not the route to go. And then the final part of the bill is that it establishes a representative citizens' assembly to advise ministers and parliament to devise the necessary carbon budgets and nature regeneration strategies that we need to fulfill our global responsibilities as a country. And those responsibilities are not just to our own people, but internationally, to other countries, and intergenerationally. Because of course, it's my kids and people your age who are going to be living the worst of this crisis unless we do something about it now. And the final thing that I want to say about the bill is that it's been drawn up by a range of scientists and campaigners and politicians. It's been introduced into Parliament already. We've got over 100 MPs signed up. There are over 200 local councils who are supporting it, a whole range of different organisations, from environmental groups to businesses, to local authorities, to church groups, to voluntary organisations like the Women's Institute, all critical players as part of the alliance and the coalition, because it's by working in a coalition way, both at a local level and at a national level, that we're going to be able to persuade Parliament to pass this bill. And this type of campaign we've run 8 times before, not for about 10 years. The last time was about 10 years ago. And every single time we've run this type of campaign to get a piece of legislation passed, like this bill, we've succeeded. Even when the government of the day has said, no way are we going to accept this. This is too radical. And Parliament has been disinterested. Well, citizens working together, alliances of organisations like this, can make a parliamentary democracy work. And parliamentary democracy is about when one's MP listens to what constituents are saying. And a key part of the campaign is spreading activist work, of which all of you can be a tremendously important part in every constituency across the land, whether it's a Tory, a Labour, a Liberal Democrat, a Green, or one of the nationalist parties in Scotland and Wales or Northern Ireland, voters going and saying, we want you as our representative MP to pass, to support this bill and ensure the government passes it, and to do the same thing with your local authority, with your local councils. So there are huge opportunities here for everyone to join in. And the final thing that I'd say is this. It's not just that this type of campaign works, it's that everyone has a role to play. And if you're not used to dealing with your MP, and I know other people are going to be talking about this, all too often it can seem, oh my God, they'll never listen. How am I going to be able to engage with them, particularly when there's a pandemic going on and it's very difficult to have meetings, but there are always ways. And you're going to hear about some of those ways in a minute, so I won't go on to that. But the thing to remember is that MPs are human beings. They are just like everybody else. And what we have on our side is not just the opportunities to inspire, organise and mobilise in every constituency across the land, but we've got the science, we've got the economic evidence, and we've got the social justice morality driving this campaign forward. So that has to be a winner, and you all can help make it just the win that we need it to be. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Charles. That was an incredible speech, and I think you explained the CEE Bill very succinctly. And if anyone just noticed, I put a link to the CEE Bill website in the chat just now. So if any of you want to see it or save it for reading later, I recommend you do so. So now we're going to move on to Katie, who is going to talk a bit more about how, if now you want to be engaging with your MP, but you don't know anything about them, you don't know if they're Green, if they voted for the CEE Bill at all or supporting it, well, Katie's going to talk to you about how can you find out about where your MP stands in all of this.
Yeah, I've got some slides, but yeah, it's a tough act to follow. Thanks, Charles. I'm just going to share my screen. Why won't it let me share my screen? Ah. No pressure. Okay, can you see that, Eloise? Yeah, cool. Okay, so yeah, I want to talk to you a bit about Talking Won't Cut It, Your MP's Climate Record, which is a website that the UKYCC Community Team has developed. Here is a nice screenshot from the website. This is what it looks like. I'm going to share a QR code at the end of this, which will take you straight to the website. But yeah, so we thought that this was something that people need because, as Charles has highlighted, it's really important to engage with your MP on climate-related issues because, you know, the more we're talking about it and the more we're saying to our MPs we care about this, then the more likely they are to actually do something useful. So we decided to make this resource, which has, your MP basically gets a score which is like red, amber or green based on how they voted in the past. So red is your MP has been quite bad, green is your MP is doing really well. And we've chosen votes and campaigns where MPs can very clearly demonstrate that they are committed to tackling climate change. Things like the 2008 Climate Change Act, the CEE Bill. I can't remember what else is on the list, but there's another slide which has that one in a sec. Yeah, and so you can look up your individual MP, or we've got a nice map where you can see the whole spectrum of MPs across the country. So yeah, that's the state of things at the moment. As you can see, there's a lot of red and yellow. It's not looking great. But that might change if you get your MP to support the CEE bill. And yeah, just as an example of some of the profiles we've got, here is our esteemed Prime Minister, who's not doing desperately well, as you can see. So he's not in support of the CEE bill. He also isn't supporting the Divest Parliament campaign. Yeah, and we've got not applicable for votes that happened when that MP wasn't an MP. So we've tried to make it as fair as we can. Yeah, just for balance, this is the leader of the opposition. He's a bit meh, sort of in the middle, could be doing better. And then for some positive energy, it's the Green Queen, Caroline Lucas, who is one of the MPs supporting the CEE bill. So what can you do? Follow the QR code or the link on the slide, and you can look up your MP's climate record. Brilliant. Now you know whether they're doing anything. So get in touch, either tweet them, email them, write to them. Jeana is going to talk in a minute about how best to get in touch with your MP. But yeah, get in touch and say, oh, thanks for doing a great job, or please can you support the CEE bill and do more for the planet? Yeah, and share with your friends, share with everyone you know. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Oh, how do I stop sharing?
Thank you, Katie.
Okay,
and
thanks.
I really like that resource, particularly with the map where you can see all the different colours and just
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Shout out to Tom for the beautiful map.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that going a bit more green soon. So now we're going to move on to Jeana, who's going to talk more about how do you actually go about creating a relationship with your MP, because often, particularly for young people, that can seem quite daunting. They can seem quite scary and really adult, especially if you're quite young. So Jeana, give it away.
Cool. Hey everyone. So like I mentioned earlier, I work at Hope for the Future, and it's a charity that's been around for about 8 years, specialising in communicating with your political reps, specifically MPs, about climate change. So I'm just going to share my screen now. Great. Eloise, can you see this? Yeah, slick, thank you. Okay, so basically, for the past 8 years, we've developed, off of a lot of research, off of a lot of actually going out there and working with communities and their MPs, a really robust approach on how to get your MP to take more effective action on climate change. And we call this a relationship-based approach to lobbying. And the work that we're doing is essentially looking at the nuts and bolts of engaging with your MP. So how to make an MP think and feel different about climate change, and how to get them to see that taking action on climate change is actually in the best interest of their entire constituency. And the work we do at Hope for the Future is literally like tools, techniques to use in the room with them. Normally we kind of deliver a 2-hour training session for free on this relationship-based lobbying approach. But I'm just going to, over the next 10 minutes, pull out some really key points for you to use when engaging your MP on the CEE bill. But also do know, if you go to Hope for the Future's website, it's like hftf.org.uk, you can request training. It's often for free if you're a community-based group, and get the full thing if you want more support. So I'll just kick off by saying part of the reason we developed this approach is basically due to the rise of adversarial politics in the UK. So this is basically what you see on the news when news reporters are interviewing politicians, and they're using like a line of attack, and they're using questions that are there to show the politician up. Like if you think of Piers Morgan or Jeremy Paxman, that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And MPs are really used to that style of communication, and they expect to experience it from everyone. So they're basically trained against that. And not only is it that, they have a lot of defensive behaviours that they'll use in meetings. I've just pulled up some of these on the screen, but like the big ones are controlling the conversation, so taking up loads of space meaning that in a short 15 to 20 minute meeting with your MP, you don't have as much time to get your point across. Or, you know, MPs are experts at like swerving questions and not giving concrete answers and feigning surprise and powerlessness. And at Hope for the Future, we see this behaviour quite a lot. And partly this is because of the approach that a constituent or a campaigner takes with their MP, which is similar to what we see from news reporters. However, it's really important to remember that news reporters aren't there to work with their MP. They're there to highlight information and point out news. But as us as constituents engaging with our MP, we're there to work with them. Engaging with your MP is an insider tactic, not an outsider tactic. So we don't want to be disruptive. We want to be building a relationship with them. And at Hope for the Future, we've worked with a lot of MPs, including Philip Davies, who was one of the 8 that didn't originally sign the Climate Change Act back in 2008, and worked with him and built a relationship so that he's much more of an advocate for climate change in Parliament. So with this in mind, our training covers a lot on how to deal with these behaviours. And the first of which is empathizing with your MP. And Charles said it earlier, we just like to make the point in our training that MPs are human beings. Now, some of you might have come across really diabolical MPs, but on the whole, a lot of them became an MP because they really care about their community and their constituency. And it's really important to remember that, and to remember that they have a really high profile job with extreme time constraints, from like going to London however many days a week to being back in their city and responding to their constituency and like going on so many like meetings as well. They don't have the time to be an expert in an issue that you might be an expert in, and they're often really constrained by their party line. And the main thing that they're concerned with is what they see the majority of their constituents caring about, because they are in it for the vote at the end of the day. And it's also important to remember that they do have a poor perception of campaigners because of the non-relationship building approach that campaigners can take. And also sometimes campaigners come across that they're not aware that there are other really important issues that their other members of their constituency really care about, and they don't like bring in climate change and how it impacts and how it's got like a very holistic effect on issues in their community. They kind of silo it a lot of the time. So basically, instead of seeing your MP as the person with all the power, we encourage you as a constituent to see them as someone you can become a partner with. And the relationship-based approach has 4 different areas that we'd cover in the training, which is researching your MP, and you can use tools like the one Katie just went over to like help you with that. And then you would be like finding common ground and defining a smart agenda, and then we cover like areas for conversation. But the first step is researching your MP, and what you want to look out for is like, you want to look out for why did they become an MP? But because they care about certain issues already connected to your community, you want to figure out what their values are as an MP. Now that will align with the political party that they're from, but also like where you grow up, you have certain amount of values and certain issues that you care about more. So you want to look at what issues they're vocal on their social media, and you want to look at actually within your community, what issues are really important. And so you can also contact Hope for the Future for support on this. But here's a list of other websites you can use if you just want to do some research online for researching your MP. And so why do we suggest researching as the first step? And that's because you basically need to find out how your MP feels about climate change or the CEE bill. Are they completely opposed, or are they in total agreement? Where on this scale do they sit? Because when you figure that out, when you figure out how they feel about it, you can actually communicate with your MP based on where they're at. So for example, if you're trying to get your friend really interested in baking, you're not going to start them off with a super complicated recipe for like a creme brulee or something. You want them to dip their toes in a way that they're going to like feel empowered and get something out of it too. You're tailoring it to their abilities. And this is basically the same when you're conversing with your MP. You want to be framing your ask in a way that finds common ground with your MP. So when we're talking about finding common ground, you want to use your research to look at what's on your MP's agenda. So basically, what is their MP currently focused on, what they're vocal about? And 9 times out of 10, it'll be an issue that's actually really important within your constituency, whether that be jobs, health or fuel poverty, then you want to look at your agenda of getting the MP to sign the CEE bill and find out where the overlaps are. So what topics does the CEE bill talk about that are relevant to your constituency? Because although the MP focuses on national issues, they are a representative of their community, so it has to be really grounded in the local. When you find out what the issues of overlap are, use those topics first and foremost to hook your MP and get their interest. Say, for example, what this could look like is essentially when you're emailing your MP, you could email them to ask for a meeting that you can do virtually online. And you might start that off being like, I'm from X area, we're a coastal town, and now we've got a big issue on flooding. I want to talk to you about flooding and in particular how the CEE bill could positively impact our defences on flooding in the area. Please, can we meet? Use those issues that are grounded in your local constituency as a hook. So a big part of what we cover in the training is how to frame your ask. And we like to use this quote to kind of start people off, which is, narratives are foundational. The operating system, the soil from which everything grows, from Ella Saltmarsh from the Comms Lab. Basically, how you communicate an issue, and particularly what angle you choose to communicate with climate change, is that green jobs, access to nature, is a really important foundation and bedrock to building a relationship with your MP so that they take effective action on climate change. And when you're thinking about framing your ask, aim to make it as accessible as possible. And these are the 4 questions we suggest asking yourself in preparation for meeting with your MP and communicating with them. The first, is it popular? Basically, has it been made clear to your MP, whether that be through an event that you've got them to attend or through like press, radio, social media, that the majority of your constituency is up for the MP signing the CEE bill and not just the usual climate types? I'm not asking you to like speak to everyone in your community, but basically drum up that, like, make it clear that it isn't just a small campaigning group that are behind this bill from your area, that you are representative of your constituency. Second, is it in line with your MP's values? So, for example, if they're a Conservative MP, have you spoken about secure jobs and how the CEE bill might impact that? Third, is it within their powers? Less relevant, it's a bill, it's a parliamentary bill, it's there for MPs to sign, so yes it is. But lastly, is it grounded in the local? When you communicate with your MP, have you made it a point to talk about the positive impact that signing the bill could have in your local community, and linked it to current issues that exist? Are you essentially communicating the co-benefits of signing the CEE bill? I think the Ashton website has a toolkit on co-benefits and outlines like all the different types of co-benefits that exist. So you can always use that to help you pull out co-benefits. But essentially, just want to say it's really important to remember that in a meeting with your MP, you can only move them 1 or 2 spaces across this scale within a single meeting. And how to do that is through the framing that I've talked about, and is essentially good influencing. In the full 2 hours, we would cover like a range of conversations that are a good foundation for good influencing. But I'm going to focus on one really important one, like one of my favorites, which is asking questions. Particularly, it's a 3-level questioning technique, and it's a tool you can use with your MP. Now, we think that questions are the best skill of a campaigner, not general questions or questions that might show someone up about something they don't know, but questions that help to progress your MP's thinking. And good questions are really getting someone to think about the bill through their own mind and through their own values, and getting them to see it as a good thing through their own values. So the first level of questioning is facts, which is like who, what, where, when. What are the current plans for X? When will there be more community-owned energy? Who is responsible for delivering X? Really great questions for the first level. They're really good at getting you like that basic level of information. But essentially, these kinds of questions are a yes and no answer, and they can stifle rapport and conversation. And at the end of the day, people can agree with us on a rational level, but still not do the action that we want them to do. So that's why we suggest going to level 2 questioning after, which moving into the realm of meaning and getting out of the realm of facts. Asking questions linked to meaning might sound like, I'm aware that you aren't favourable of the CEE bill because of X, but how do you think the CEE bill could help on this issue? Or what sort of impact do you think the signing the CEE bill will have for those suffering from air pollution or fuel poverty or whatever issue is really crucial in your area? Because this is a really good technique for actually opening up a dialogue and getting your MP to think about the difficult things together with you, and working through those issues or the reasons that they might not like that bill or be unfavourable to it. And it also demonstrates that you realise that you're not kind of going in there thinking this is the perfect solution to everything, but that you are open and willing to build with them together instead of seeing them as a means to an end. And this essentially means that you're starting to understand and make sense of the bill together, and it's a partnership approach. And then after asking the fact questions and the meaning questions, you should be really warmed up to go into the third level, which is the realm of values. And just a quick side note to say, I wouldn't start with values-based questioning first. You want to just get a bit more friendly, like spend like 5 minutes just like chatting a bit before going into values. But values-based questionings might look like, for example, I'm here today as a constituent of this community because one of my values is to look after the community, and I believe the CEE bill will help to secure jobs for this area. As an MP from a Conservative party, we are both agreed on the need for secure jobs. Do you see how signing the CEE bill aligns with your values? Here you're pulling out shared values. And again, just to make the point, like engaging an MP is an insider tactic, and it is about seeing the human in them and trying to build a relationship with them. And so sometimes there are loads of points where you will disagree with your MP, especially if you're of different political persuasions. But it's more important to focus on the shared values, and there will be some. So focus on those and pull those out to create connection, but also to illuminate that shared future that you want to get towards. Because there really isn't that many people that don't want a better future. People just go about it in different ways. So I'm just going to end on this slide, which is essentially what you're aiming for is good influencing. And good influencing is generating feelings of safety, well-being, and trust, which is proven to lead to greater collaboration. Fear as a form of influencing keeps us locked into old patterns or like flight or fight survival mode. What does fear influencing sound like? It might sound like, we only have 10 years to deal with this problem. It might sound like relaying the facts of climate change or focusing on the destruction or the breakdown kind of terminology, which, to be honest, many people have heard these facts and they shut down emotionally when they're hearing about it, and they don't feel empowered to do anything about it because it is really scary. Like we all know it is super scary. And although some of us feel the fear and that encourages us to take action, many feel the fear and don't know how to deal with it. So with your influencing and with engaging, focus on the positive impact of the bill, how it will positively impact your local community and the issues that exist. And remember that good influencing is really about building a relationship with your MP. Thanks.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I think you've given so many really good tips, and I highly recommend everyone go to Look for Hope for the Future and see all the trainings that they have, because the information will be incredibly helpful when trying to convince your MP to support the CEE bill. So finally, we're going to move on to EJ, who is probably the youngest panelist here, and they themselves have created a relationship with the MP. So I thought it'd be valuable for you to kind of hear how that started, because it can be quite a daunting thing.
Right. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoy hearing me speak as much as I enjoy speaking to you. So I've had a bit of an interesting relationship with my MP because I did know them a bit beforehand before I started being a climate activist. But part of my journey has been talking with multiple politicians and multiple MPs, and it can seem like a really daunting task some of the time. Especially before you start. So I think it's important to make sure that people understand that it doesn't have to be super hard. It doesn't have to be super daunting, because as other people have mentioned, MPs are people too. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own journey. And, hopefully you guys realize that you can be empowered too, even if you haven't been already. So just to explain a bit about myself, I'm a climate activist, and it will be the 2-year anniversary of me becoming a climate activist in 4 days, which is pretty weird. But when I first started, I was terrified, like just completely terrified. I was terrified about going into Oxford by myself, terrified about making speeches, terrified about what I was getting myself into and what the people would be like. And that doesn't just mean MPs, that means everyone. I saw activists as like these big intimidating people who knew what they were doing all the time. And I saw politics as like this really hard thing to get into, even if you could somehow wrap your head around all of it. And, spoiler alert, it's impossible to wrap your head around all of it. But then I actually got into it. And I realized that it's not this really big, scary thing. It's just about owning your voice. It's about saying, I'm terrified, but I'm going to jump into it anyway. So I've got a little photo to share with all of you. And this was me at my first climate strike. And as you can see, I had the most amazing sign on the planet. I was a bit of a sarcastic 17-year-old, as you can probably tell. For those who couldn't see, my sign said, "I know you hate young people, but please stop trying to kill us." So it was an interesting time. And what I'm trying to get at is the fact that interacting with an MP is kind of similar to jumping into anything in life. Like for me, it was jumping into climate activism and all of that being rolled up together that made it just seem so daunting and so intimidating. But then I realized a lot of MPs are really eager to listen to what you have to say. And even the ones who aren't, you can still get them on side. You can use some of the techniques that have been talked about before. So some MPs will be really, really excited to talk to you. If you're a youth activist, they might be like, "Oh, it's so amazing that you're young and you're doing this," and they are so eager to get you engaged. Some MPs will do it begrudgingly. They're like, "Oh, I guess it's my job. I don't really want to do this. Who wants to be listening to a bunch of random people talking about a climate bill?" And then some of them will actively avoid you. A good example of this is when we were doing a big protest a couple of years ago. Oxfordshire County Council went onto lockdown and locked down the entire building. I guess they were worried we were going to storm it. Newsflash, we didn't storm it. But what you have to make sure you do is not give any of these politicians any excuses. They are avoiding you because they are scared of you and what you represent. So what you need to keep doing is keep pushing. Invite them to talk to you, invite them to speak at your protests or your events. And if they refuse or they let you down, then you have social media at your fingertips. Some MPs are terrified of young people because we have this amazing ability to share information with each other. We're all voters or future voters, so they need us on side. And they know that we can just snap our fingers pretty much and send a message out to other young people that this politician isn't listening to us. So they have, an active reason to listen to us. And I've been very lucky personally. My MP is actually supportive of the bill. She's been great and has actually come on to CEE Bill Alliance calls in Oxfordshire to talk about it. But some of the other MPs in the area are at different stages on the scale that was shown before. We have an MP who isn't against it, but I don't think she's fully in favour of it. And then we have some other MPs who just point blank refuse to talk to us. So it's important that we keep putting that pressure on and we keep talking to them and we keep trying. But here's the thing, it can be quite awkward when interacting with politicians. So I've got a few tips. First of all, it can feel really daunting going into it and not really knowing how to address them. So check with them first how they want to be addressed. My MP is super chill, so everyone in the strike group I'm a part of just uses her first name. And she has been great. She's come and spoken at our protests. I've actually got a photo of that as well. But this was a protest that we did last year, and she's always been really willing to just come and talk to us and listen to us. But unfortunately, not every MP is like that. So a few tips that I have for you is work with a group. So it can be so daunting to try and talk to anyone at all. So if you've got a group of people with you, whether it's the Alliance for the bill, whether it's a different group, like it could just be a union if you're part of one, it could be a mum's group, it could be a student group, whatever it is. If you have a group of people, they're going to be more likely to listen to you. Make sure you have your key points ready. So for this, it's support the bill, and then come up with reasons why they should. And then also be confident, and fake confidence is fine because most people can't really tell the difference. So you're good no matter what. And remember that politicians work for you. So yeah, basically the whole sort of thing I'm just trying to get around to is that MPs work for you, not the other way around. You don't have to be scared. You don't have to be terrified. You can just go into it and say, right, this is what I want. I need you to do this for me. And it's your job, so please do it. And I hope that worked. Hope that works for you and that you guys are able to get some really good results.
Thank you, EJ, for sharing our story with you, and I hope that motivates a lot of you into trying to talk to your MP as well. So at this point, we're going to start asking a few questions that have been left. Charles has started answering some of them, but I might get him to repeat a few just in case people miss those. And I think the first question I want to ask, and I will direct this one at Charles, is can you give us a sense of the timeline behind the CEE Bill? So what is happening now, what's happening next, so people can kind of get a sense of the urgency of what's going on?
Yeah, sure. It's always difficult to be precise about when to become law. We launched the campaign in September. Caroline Lucas was the principal sponsor of the bill, our wonderful green queen, as I think someone referred to her, in my neighbouring constituency in Brighton. And we got MPs from all the parties, except the Conservatives, sponsoring the bill when it was first introduced, which was very important. As I said, we've got almost 100 MPs now from all parties except the Conservative Party. The critical thing is to now make the Conservative breakthrough, and that's what we're focusing on. And we're looking to achieve that in 2021, particularly because of these international summits that are coming up that I also referred to, which provide a very good focal point for the campaign and for the UK taking a lead globally. So this year is going to be very important in building that momentum in Parliament and outside of Parliament. One of the problems that we've now run into, though, is that the government has suspended business on a Friday. And it's on a Friday that private members' bills, of which this is one, are heard. They go through the various stages of common scrutiny, then the Lords, and then back to the Commons before they eventually become law. That's assuming that they make it past all the stages. So that Friday business now doesn't happen because the government have cancelled it for all sorts of reasons to do with legislative log jams and the pandemic. So we're having to use other opportunities in Parliament to at least get the bill debated and to keep the pressure on ministers and the Prime Minister. Probably we've set ourselves a target of 2, maybe 3 years for the bill to become law. So that's the sort of timeline that we're looking at. But again, I want to emphasize that because of this biodiversity summit in May, the G7 meeting of the major economic countries in June, of which the UK is a host, and the climate summit in November, of which the UK is a co-host, all these international gatherings provide us with very important political opportunities to pressure our MPs, to pressure the government and the opposition party to adopt relevant clauses of the bill in the UK position at this summit. So there's both a near-term set of goals where we can make things happen that will really make a difference, and then the longer 2 to 3 year time scale for actually having the bill become law.
Wonderful, thank you for that answer. Okay, so we have a few other questions. One which I'm going to direct towards Jeana, if that's okay. And again, it's sort of linking to how do we get the Conservatives, a few people asked about that, to support it, but also have you got any kind of key phrases or ideas that people kind of, when they walk into that room, that they can kind of rely on and use if they're feeling a bit nervous about communicating with an MP, particularly one that might be kind of against the CEE Bill to begin with?
Yeah, cool. So I think with Conservative MPs, it's that point around finding common ground, and especially finding common ground on issues that are really important to your local constituency, and therefore framing your ask around that. So if you're in a coastal area and there's a lot of flooding going on, like try and talk to them about that, but through the means of the CEE Bill. Or if it's jobs, or like how you're thinking about the just transition, you want to think about secure green jobs for people who currently work in like on like fossil fuel jobs, like talk about it from that angle. But like it is really hard, and there's like no denying that, and that's why it's like really important to just remember that you do have to keep pushing that door. And like if you don't hear from them first, like try again, try and engage them in an event, or try and invite them to some kind of thing where there's like a press opportunity, because MPs, any politicians, love the opportunity of being in the local press because it'll help them with their profile. So take advantage of stuff like that. But ultimately, it is that thing about researching your MP to understand your MP's values and the issues that they're vocal on, and kind of what it is that they care about, and approaching the CEE bills through that. And with kind of the second question, to the phrasing around it, I think it's like, or tools to use. I would just really encourage you to check out Hope for the Future's website. It's htft.org.uk, because you can access the full training, and we basically deliver it for free unless you're like a company, or like say if you're like a university or something, we deliver it for free. So we can actually take you through this in a much more sustainable pace and like really help you with this. But one of the things we talk about when you first go into an MP's meeting is use your purpose, hook and map. Basically state like, hi, I'm X, I'm here to talk to you about the CEE Bill because I think it will have this positive impact on our community. Today, that's like stating your purpose, and like your hook is like the way that's going to have a positive impact, and then your map will be like, and today I'm going to talk about the CEE Bill, how it'll be really good for flooding in our area, and what I'd like us to do about it together. And so basically you've outlined everything you want to talk about in that meeting. And when an MP might do some of their defensive behaviors because it's like muscle memory for them right now, you can assert yourself in a really positive way. It's been like, you're talking about X and that sounds great, but I'd just really like to return to this point that I mentioned at the beginning because we've only got 5 minutes left. But again, this is like, it's very doable, and we do deliver this training specifically to empower community members. So if you do want that extra support, like literally do just check us out on the website, and like there's a form you can use to say that you want access to the training and stuff, and we can basically arrange that. I hope that helps.
Yeah, you answered that brilliantly. So now I have a question for Katie, which is, can local councils play a role in influencing their reluctant MPs, Conservative or otherwise?
Oh, that was a question that I asked rather than a question that I was going to answer.
But feel free to
Louise. Yeah, maybe that's a question for Charles.
Yeah, Charles.
I just kind of wanted to ask, like, why is it important to talk to sort of local councils as well as MPs when we're kind of trying to get people to support the CEE Bill?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to talk to local councils. I mean, unless they get cancelled, we've got the May elections, the local authority elections, there are metropolitan mayor elections, there are police commissioner elections. All of these elections actually have an opportunity to drive the bill campaign forward and to take up the issues of climate and nature breakdown. On the website, we have work teams in the Alliance who are specifically geared up to help grassroots campaigns and to help activists form local alliances and local coalitions, as has already been said, amongst church groups, amongst voluntary organisations like the Women's Institute, Towns Women's Guild. If you want a Tory MP on board, get the WI locally to be lobbying him or her, and the Towns Women's Guild. They are politically very powerful organisation. The unions, the conservation and wildlife organisations like Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth, professional associations like the Institute of Engineers, businesses, the Federation of Small Businesses, all these organisations are becoming part of the national coalition, and they all have, or most of them have, local branches or chapters or groups that can form the basis of a really powerful, effective local coalition, no matter whoever party your MP is from and whatever the makeup of your local authority. But local authorities, one of the things that we do in the Alliance campaign is draft model motions that the council can pass. The Oxford Alliance has already been referred to, that EJ is a part of. They've got their council passing a wonderful model motion about the CEE bill. We can provide those motions for you to take up in your local alliances or as individuals. So focusing on councils, unitary councils, town councils, parish councils, they all matter. And that, as that political support builds up, and they're Tory councils who support the bill, then that puts the pressure on the MP. This is about mobilizing and organizing and building momentum. It's a momentum type campaign, and we get enough people joining in and a big enough momentum, we'll win. We've done it in the past. We can do it this time, because there's nothing more important. And any help that we can give through the CEE Bill Alliance website, or I've posted my email, get in contact with me directly and we'll connect.
Wonderful, thank you. And this just reminds me, this is being recorded. So if you want to share this with anyone afterwards and try and help them understand why the CEE Bill is really important, feel free, and it will be accessible to everyone who's here. I have a question for EJ, just a little one, but I was hoping you could talk about how working as part of a team kind of helped you build the confidence to do things such as your climate activism and interacting with your MP.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you. So I think a big part of working in a team is that it actually helps you to develop your own confidence without feeling like you're doing it by yourself. So even if you end up as a de facto team leader, or you end up talking a lot about a particular topic, because you're with other people, that gives you a lot more confidence and it gives you other people to work off of. And also, if you're interacting with someone who is potentially going to try and refute your points, if you have more people with you and you can all do different bits of research, then it means you can cover a broader base between you. So you are then able to get different points across, and potentially you'll be able to rebut any sort of points that might be given to you by someone who doesn't like what you're doing. And as for building up confidence, if you work with a team, then you're able to learn from each other. You're able to grow with each other and develop with each other and help each other out a lot. And there's just nothing quite like knowing you've got someone behind you who's got your back. So, you know, if I'm not quite on point today, someone else can be there. Or if I need a bit of feedback, someone else can give it. So working as a team is super important. But if you don't have a team with you, then you can still do it by yourself. It's just that having a team can be an extra thing that can really help.
Great, thank you. So any other questions? Let me just check. If not, I will start trying to, well, if you have any questions, feel free to write them really quickly. But if not, I will start trying to wrap this up. So quickly for all the panelists, thank you so much for giving us your time for this past hour. I was wondering if any of you would like to say any little parting lines before we wrap this all up. I will start with you, Charles.
This has been great. I thought the other speakers were fantastically inspiring. Listen to what they've got to say, sign up to the bill, join in. We can win this one. All the information that you need, we can provide along with colleagues on the panel. And it's so great that your youth climate organisation has become part of the Alliance. We really need people like you. So all of you collectively and individually, thumbs up. We can win this one.
Thank you. Jeana?
Wouldn't start my video. I think I'll just leave it with just trying to remember that you, with the CEE bill and engaging your MP about it, you do want to try to build a relationship with them as best as possible. And like, you know, humanize your MP. And also that, like, when you're trying to change an MP who is quite, like, say, opposed or has been vocal or not into it, you are working in getting them to see an issue quite differently, and that does take a bit of time and a bit more engagement. So do be patient with yourself, and I don't expect you to be able to influence us like in one 20-minute meeting. Allow it to take the time without like pressurizing yourself too much.
Thank you. And EJ?
Right, so just really quickly want to say that working together is so important. So find other organisations in your area, whether it's a youth strike group or an XR group, or even something that's not related to the climate at all, and get them on board. Follow each other online, support each other where possible, and together we can do this.
And finally, Katie.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Eloise, for hosting and doing all the admin so I didn't have to. Thank you to Charles, EJ and Jeana. And yeah, thanks all for coming. I hope that this has inspired you to get in touch with your MPs or with your local council. And I think we're going to send out some information to everyone after this with some resources for everyone. So yeah, thanks everyone.
And a final thanks from me. Thank you for attending. Thank you for giving us your time. And I wish you all a really lovely evening, and hopefully see you joining in the CEE Bill Alliance and helping out in the future. Bye-bye.